Hey there, my name is Michael. I make Diablo 2 videos, a lot of off-meta builds in that game, Final Fantasy VII theory videos, and I make music. I sing and I play guitar. I have a couple music videos on my channel. Anyway, today we're going to look at Path of Exile 2 again. As a Diablo 2 player, there haven't been many ARPGs that have really caught my attention, and I always just stuck to playing Diablo 2 and have been playing it on and off for a couple decades, honestly. And Diablo 2 Resurrected came out and really invigorated my love for that game. And what I like to do in that game a lot of times is make kind of weird builds and, off-meta builds, or some people call them meme builds. But I really like to try to stretch those mechanics. I like using cross-contamination of skills and things like that on classes and seeing what you can come up with. And Path of Exile just seems like the type of game that really rewards that style of thinking for builds. And from what I've seen so far, these dudes were huge Diablo 2 fans. I mean, the more I see from this, the more Diablo 2 influence I get. We're going to look at this video here, which came out 10 months ago, okay? And I have seen it, but I haven't watched it in 10 months. So now I'm curious to go back and watch this. Somebody also requested it. So let's get it going, okay?
Welcome to Path of Exile 2. We'd like to start off by showing some of the gameplay of Act 3, one of the 6 acts in POE2's campaign.
So this is Act 3, and look, already green, just like the jungle in Act 3 of Diablo 2.
We're starting here in the jungle depths. Act 3 is set in the ruins of the Vaal civilization, which fell thousands of years ago. Jungle has taken over their former once great cities, and we'll be exploring it using one of our 6 new character classes, called the Monk.
Cool enemies right there, too. There was like a gorilla-looking thing with 4 arms.
Had 1 character class for each of the combinations of strength, dexterity, and intelligence. When looking at the design of POE2, though, we realized that many of the new skills that we were trying to design just didn't really fit thematically with the existing classes that we have. Being a spellcaster with a bear form makes sense for Strength Int, but it doesn't really sound like something that a Templar would do.
A spellcaster with a bear form makes sense for Strength and Intelligence? I see, okay.
We realized that since we had new mechanics for every attribute combination, it actually made sense to design new character classes to explore the new themes. In POE2, every attribute combination has 2 classes associated with it. Strength Int has the Templar or the Druid. On
Strength is Templar or Druid.
Dexterity, you have the Ranger or the more spare-focused Huntress. And on Dex Int, you have the Shadow and the Monk.
So Dex and Intelligence is Shadow or Monk. Okay, so this is Monk, and this is Dexterity and Intelligence. Okay.
Monk is playing here. Each class has its own 3 ascendancies that let you further specialize the class in the way that only that class has access to. But they both start at the same location in the passive tree.
Okay, so you start at the same location as the passive tree. That was kind of one of my questions before, too. Somebody did explain it in the comments, so thank you. And then there's 3 ascendancies for the class. So it does benefit you to pick your class. Even though you can cross-contaminate skills in this game however you want, it is build defining in the end to ascend, I guess, right? 3 different directions. Kind of reminds me of Second Densetsu 3. You guys know that one? It was like a Secret of Mana game that was you could only get on emulator back in the day. Those had diverging kind of ascendancies in the game, which I really liked and enjoyed. It's a very primitive game, if you play it now, but it reminds me of that.
The quest rewards you're offered on the 2 variants are tailored to the class, but of course, this is PoE. You can still mix and match anything to your heart's content.
Mix and match anything. That's cool. And look at this cool enemy. I remember this. Silverback.
Looks like we've come across the boss
Blackfist
for this area. In PoE2, every area of the campaign contains a boss of at least this difficulty. That's over 100 bosses to fight as you make your way through the campaign.
Yeah, 100 bosses to fight as you make your way through the campaign. I wonder how many of those are mandatory.
And they all have unique mechanics to learn.
All unique mechanics. Insane.
As you've seen from watching Mark fighting, the melee combat in POE2 has a very different feel than before. We've done a lot of things to add mobility to combat. Practically every melee skill in POE2 has some kind of movement built into it. But the monk in particular is a melee fighter who specializes in mobility over brute strength.
Nice dodge. That was a cool move there. That ice blast, how he kind of like went back and then whoo, and like he like kind of like almost like a dance, you know, and he had the ice shard shoot out. That was cool. And it dodged too. You got hit there, it looked like. Yeah, this just looks sweet.
Stay still.
There it is again. And I like that you can build up their resistance to your status effect, like freeze, and then you can actually use it on the boss. That's smart.
So, as Mark has been playing, you might have noticed these blue markers over enemies. Mark has a skill equipped called Killing Palm. Whenever an enemy has a blue indicator over it, it means that the monster has low enough life to cull with Killing Palm. Successfully executing the cull will give you a power charge. This is an important skill for the monk, since many of his skills interact with power charges.
Okay.
One of the great things about the skill is that it has a built-in dash forward, which makes it much easier to target the skill at the right point when you need it. We've done a lot of work in POE2 to make using skills like this feel satisfying. If you're accidentally targeting slightly off the monster, the skill will automatically lock on to the cullable target, and will even do a small amount of pathfinding around obstacles. We really want to...
Yeah, that's cool. It does pathfinding around obstacles, and I really like the emphasis on these melee characters in this game. I think that was one of the reasons they said they made a sequel at all. Is they were like, we were going to do a big expansion like for PoE, and then we realized like in order to fix melee, we have to like just start like a new game. It's true, man. Getting melee right is hard. In Diablo 2, melee is definitely handicapped compared to casters for sure, unless you have like awesome gear. So there is like in Diablo 2, there's definitely this. It's like a good and a bad thing. It's like making a really good melee character in Diablo 2 is really satisfying because you have to have played the game a lot and like really got some really nice gear and gotten unlucky on some drops and stuff. Have a really nice charm inventory. Like there's so many things you need, and then it like wrecks and it feels good. It still isn't even as good as the best casters, but when you get a melee build working and it's super tanky and you can just take on all the bosses and you can go through trash mobs easily, it feels amazing. So I like that their emphasis here is the melee feel and impact, and they want it to be something that people play. Yeah, so good, dude. And I love the monk class. I made a Diablo 2 off meta build called a monk druid last year, and I'd never seen anyone do that before. That was like my one of my main things that I kind of invented for Diablo 2. And you know, you don't have to think that I think so highly of myself that I said invented, but really, no one had done that before. So you can check that out if you want on my channel. But yeah, I like monk classes too. I think they're cool.
To make sure that when you've got an opportunity to use the skill, nothing is going to get in your way. Once you have some power charges, you need some skills to power up. A great follow-up is Falling Thunder. Falling Thunder without a power charge just creates a relatively small lightning AoE in front of you. But do it with some power charges and it turns into a pack clearer with a large number of extra projectiles.
Yeah, that's cool.
One thing you'll notice here is that like almost every melee skill in POE2, Falling Thunder has a bit of extra movement built in just in case you need it. Using the skill within range and you'll do a flip in place. But use it at a larger range and your character will move forward while executing it, getting you into position without any time penalty. In POE2, you also get a short period to redirect your target. Notice how you can start the skill facing one way, then whip the mouse sideways to land the skill in a different direction? In order to get power charges,
nice.
You're going to first need to get some lower life monsters into a cullable range. You've got a few options.
So you can start the skill and then just move your mouse and it'll like flip them over the other way.
You want to charge right in? Whirling Assault is a good option.
This is also old. Like they don't even have all of the like the WASD and stuff implemented for all the characters at this point yet either, right?
It doesn't do much damage per hit, but it covers a lot of ground. And notice how you can turn as you do it? Generally speaking, you never lose control of your character in POE2.
So he's got 3 charges right now.
Turn at the right time, you can get a couple of extra hits in on the monsters.
Is he going to use it?
Cull. Follow up with a killing palm, then finish off the rest of the
There
pack
it is. Yeah, and it kind of wasted him. Like, it did a lot more damage with all 3 charges. You could see, like, there were, like, 3 lightning bolts that went out.
We've now entered the Vaal Mechanarium. This is the place where the Vaal built the various...
I guess there's one thing that I'll say, too, about this that I don't know if it's, like, if it's something I don't like or not, it's hard to say yet. But, like, in Diablo 2, not every class has access to every element in their skill tree. But so far, like in Path of Exile, it feels like if you want lightning or fire or ice or something, it feels like every class has access to those. I don't know. I haven't actually seen that, but it just kind of feels like they do. Even if even if you're following, like, say, just the monk, right? I'm seeing lightning. I'm seeing ice. Does that mean he doesn't get fire abilities, or can he? I know he can, like, grab a fire ability from a sorceress, like, skill. But I'm just wondering, like, is it like that in Path of Exile 2, where you have kind of certain elements are themed into certain classes? Do you get what I'm saying? Like, the sorceress in Diablo 2 is fire, ice, lightning. She doesn't have magic or holy, you know? Like, she doesn't have poison, right? Like, the necromancer is, like, magic and poison, you know, and then he has all of his minions and stuff. And he has very little fire with Corpse Explosion with the fire golem. But there are ways to make, like, a fire necromancer, which I have done on the channel. A pure fire mage necromancer. And it's really cool when you can do stuff like that. But it's not like within the character's skills initially, right? Does Path of Exile, like, does every class just have, like, oh, here's, like, the lightning monk, and here's, like, the fire monk, and then, you know, I don't know if I love that. Like, I like the exclusivity of some of the elements for some of the classes.
constructs they relied on to power their civilization.
Now this is a find! A Vaal ruin that hasn't been looted? I wonder why nobody's been in here before.
One useful feature that we've added is the ability to call in NPCs to where you are, to give you more information, help you with quest objectives, and so that you don't have to always go back to town. In this case, we'll call in Alva to find out what to do.
So, okay, I didn't remember seeing like that before. You can call in an NPC to your area to get, like, a quest objective update instead of having to go back to town and talk to them. Isn't, like, that's kind of just cool. I don't know. Like, it's just kind of like a nice little quality of life thing. You know, you wouldn't even, like, consider it. Like, nobody would even probably care if they had to go back to town to talk to this person. But it's just kind of cool that you're just like, why don't you just come to me?
This mechanism, if powered with a small soul core, it could open that door. There should definitely be soul cores somewhere around here. They had to power these constructs somehow.
As Alpha said, we need to find a soul core to open this door.
Okay.
Let's explore.
Stay back!
If you want to shave off some life without getting too close
I
to
like
some
that
of the more
move.
dangerous monsters,
That just
a
knocks
good
them
option
back.
is Wind Blast. Wind Blast also doesn't do too much damage, but it keeps the enemies back. The closer they are, the farther they're pushed back. So it's a great option for keeping smaller but high damage enemies at bay. Note that
I wonder if there's a way to build that move up, though, you know, so that it has some kind of synergy to it where it does do good damage. There probably is.
the bigger the enemy is, the less they'll be pushed back. So trying to push back some giants isn't going to be effective.
Yeah, okay, so big enemies it doesn't work on.
And there's the soul core. Let's get back to the door.
Your fate is sealed.
Yeah, you can kind of see the flow of it. It's like some of those AoE moves to kind of get you moving, get you into the fight, palm strike to get some charges, and then smack down to do more damage if you want to just take out the last few guys.
Investigating in here.
clear this, clear a little pack out.
If you need to defeat tougher enemies, it might be time to break out some of the ice skills in the monk's arsenal.
Okay.
Glacial Cascade creates a wave of ice that moves slowly in front of the player. It's pretty ineffective against fast-moving monsters because most of the damage occurs right at the end of the wave, and so a lot of monsters will just walk right by it. But if you can find a way to make a monster stop at just the right place, it can be very effective. In order to do that, you probably want to freeze monsters. The monk has a few different tools to do this. A fairly simple option is to get right in the monster's face with Ice Strike. Ice Strike doesn't do too much damage on the first 2 hits, but attack 3 times in sequence and you can get off a combo that has a much higher chance to freeze.
Yeah.
Get in there with that freeze, then roll back and finish the job with a Glacial Cascade.
Yeah,
Now,
so then
remember how Glacial Cascade had that extra damaging spike at the
does
end?
it have to be like
Hit
the
a
right
frozen
distance?
enemy with that spike, it shatters the ice on the enemy and does a devastating amount of damage.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I just casually mentioned rolling back before. Did I forget to mention that in POE2 we added a dodge roll to every character? Just press spacebar at any time to roll. There's no cooldown, no limitations. It even has a bit of built-in pathfinding so you don't get stuck on things. When you dodge roll, you're not invulnerable. If something hits you, you're gonna feel it, but most things...
I like the dodge roll because it means that there is some way to dodge attacks and stuff. Like in Diablo 2, you can move out of the way. There is blocking. There are passive abilities that dodge up based on a percentage. And then there's like resistances and stuff and like ways to tank things, like just having enough lifesteal and all that. But there isn't really, like most of the time, it's just like, do you have good enough gear to withstand the hits of the enemies? Or are you strong enough to kill them before they kill you? You know? So I like the idea of the dodge roll because it's just allows you then to play a little bit better and maybe make up for your lack of gear at times. So I think that's good.
things will not hit you. That's because while rolling, projectiles and melee strikes will always miss. You'll have to roll out of the way of a slam that has AoE, but anyone swinging a sword or throwing a fireball is going to miss. Now, another really important function of the dodge roll is that it lets you cancel out of almost any skill at any time. This makes it so you don't feel like you're getting stuck doing a long animation when something is about to hit you. It really changes how skills with longer attack and cast times play, and it makes dodge roll feel like a very reliable way to avoid attacks. So, that's one way to get out of the way of damage.
Nice, he just like
But the
shattered
monk
that whole
specializes
group.
in mobility, so it makes sense that he would have a few more. Wave of Frost is one of our new attacks with a retreat built right in.
It does seem like the distance of that spike, like the end of it, is what shatters them. I also just liked that the fact that he's using lots of different skills here, and it's not just like a 1 or 2 skill build.
You move backwards and throw out a cold attack with a significant freeze. The great thing about this is it puts
that
you
was
at a good
cool.
distance to follow up with Glacial Cascade and do a whole
Yeah, like he jumps back and the ice goes up, and then he shoots the other one and it shattered him.
pile of damage. Hey look, another soul core.
A fetch quest, but the combat's awesome, so it's fine.
Another skill you can use to get some extra freeze is Shattering Palm. Shattering Palm is another palm strike that puts a small ice bomb on your target. Kill or deal enough damage to the target and the bomb will explode, doing some damage and a significant freeze. It's a great option against bosses where the wave of ice might not be enough to get that freeze off, but you really want to get that Glacial Cascade damage bonus.
Get back!
So there's the ice bomb, which is kind of like is the other thing where you place the lightning tag.
Face your demise.
The final skill we're going to show you today is Flicker Strike. It's a monk skill now, and another skill that consumes power charges. If you've played POE1, you know what to expect.
Flicker strike.
It's a great finisher for tough boss fights, and it looks pretty impressive too.
Yeah, that's cool. He's like zipping
Face
through.
your demise.
That's a really cool move.
Another door.
He like goes
Wonder what could be in there.
and like hits everything. Stone Sentinel. There's just a nice variety of enemies too, like cool looking enemies. So there it looked like he didn't place that thing exactly right because the guy didn't freeze and he didn't shatter. The second enemy there. And then this is like a little hidden boss, right?
In order to take down this boss, we're going to need all the tools in the monk's arsenal.
Blackjaw the
especially
Remnant?
the combo of Freeze and Glacial Cascade. If you're a POE1 player, you might think that you can't really rely on Freeze because there's so many bosses that are immune to it. But in POE2, that's changing significantly. In POE1, Freeze is a binary mechanic. An attack freezes the target, or it doesn't. What this basically means is that in POE1, we were forced to add freeze immunity to many bosses, because freeze just trivialized them.
Yeah.
Because of that, freezing was something you only really used while pack clearing, and not something you could rely on as a core part of your build for boss fight. In POE2 though, all crowd control mechanics now have internal meters that allow you to build up to a freeze or stun, or whatever other CC mechanic you might be using. It's a little bit like poise from games like Elden Ring, though the meters tend to be a lot smaller than those games.
Like Poise from Elden Ring. Yeah, I also like that Jonathan here, he's not afraid to just reference another game, you know? Like, it's not, like, you don't really, I can't remember the last time I heard, like, a presentation just be like, yeah, it's just like this other game. You know? I like that he's just like, yeah, it's like the Poison Elden Ring or a Dark Souls game, you know? Like, yeah, it's kind of like that. Pretty cool, huh?
When you freeze an enemy, it increases the amount of freeze you need to do another freeze, but the increased difficulty bleeds away slowly. More freeze will always let you freeze the boss more often, but this system means it will not get out of control in party play or interact badly with other CC mechanics, allowing us to let these kinds of mechanics actually work against all bosses.
Yeah, that's good. So that was a nice sequence there. He like dodged just right. Was hitting him from behind. So like, yeah, I like this a lot. I like that it's like get a couple hits in, dodge roll, kind of run around, free, like build up his freeze. Then you have an opening. Very nice. Like in Diablo 2, it's kind of just like you either are wasting the bosses or your character isn't set to kill something with an HP pool that high, so it's just like firing away forever, or you're so weak that you're just getting like one-shotted by the boss, you know? So I like that this is a combination of skill and gear and how you're setting up everything. I really like that. I imagine that at some point you'll be able to like walk into this boss and kill him in like 10 seconds though, right? It seems like that's what you should be able to do eventually with good enough gear and level and all that stuff. But for the time being, I like this kind of style of play though, where it's like, all right, boss encounter, let's go, and then you're kind of working at it.
Face your demise.
Alright.
Blackjaw has dropped a consumable quest item, the Flame Core. It's a permanent +10 to
Plus 10 to maximum spirit. It burns with the heat of rage and murderous intent. A single soul imprisoned eternally for his crimes. Right click to shatter the flame core to release the captured souls.
spirit.
So 10 to spirit. And we know from the other thing, spirit can be used for like those minions, right? For summons.
In POE2, we really want to make sure that you feel rewarded for exploration. It wouldn't be much good if we made all these awesome optional bosses if we didn't have something great to find for killing them.
Agreed.
One of the things you might find for killing a boss is a permanent stat bonus to your character.
Okay, that's awesome.
Your men come.
Permanent stat bonuses for killing optional bosses is cool. I wonder too if like it's always the same type of reward. So, like, maybe when you get really familiar with the game and you start, like, another character, you could, like, kind of fast track, like, oh, I'll take out these optional bosses because I know they give spirit, you know? And maybe not these ones because I don't need their buff. I'm curious if that's kind of how that would end up being.
Your fate is sealed.
Big mob over there of archers. Whoa, he's getting wrecked right there. His health went down a lot, and a lot there again. Yeah, like, I love how he almost got killed by a regular mob. You know, he defeated the boss pretty easily, and then he, like, almost just died. It's very Diablo 2. Get killed by a regular mob and wreck the boss. Death becomes. This game looks awesome. Can't wait to get my hands on this, dude. Like, it looks fun to do the combos and stuff. And it seems like it's going to be quite nice on controller, too.
In order to help us with this next area, we're going to call in a sorceress. Mark's friend, Octavian, is going to send a friendvite, which we're going to accept. And then they can play together.
All right. Here's a TP.
The sorceress is the new intelligence-focused character in POE2. While the witch focuses more on occult magic and summoning, the sorceress is themed around pure elemental destruction. Let's have a look at how she plays.
All the vaunted technology of the Val, and look where it got them. Dead and buried.
There's that
This is
NPC
the
again.
largest soul core I've ever seen. With this, we could power the canal systems. But it isn't charged. There is still latent energy in this machinarium from its ancient operation. These lines in the stonework should lead to generators. You might need to find some more soul cores to spin them up, but everything looks to be in surprisingly decent condition. Maybe the golems have been maintaining it. In any case,
I think it's
it
pretty well
should
voice
still
acted,
function.
too. You know?
We'll have to remove that
Like,
large
there's
core
nothing
wall.
stands out, right? It's like, it just feels like it belongs. That's good.
We have some skills here that you'll probably recognize if you've played POE1 before, but they feel a bit different to play now.
I have
Spark
not.
is great in these tight passages since it bounces around. We've added a Pierce support gem to really allow it to hit an entire room of targets.
So there's a
For a more
support gem
single
that
target
allows it
focused
to
skill,
pierce.
Arc is a good choice. It does more damage to the first target you hit.
There's so much happening. Like,
Now,
there's just
if you find
lightning
yourself
bouncing around.
surrounded, it might be good to use Ice Nova. It hits all enemies around you and slows them down with chill.
Kind of like
Just be
Frost
careful.
Nova.
Getting up close and personal isn't the ideal place for a sorceress to be. She doesn't have the defenses of a more melee-oriented character. If you want to help with the sorceress's weak melee defense, though, you could use Arctic Armor. In POE2, Arctic Armor is a buff that builds up as you stand still. You can see
In Diablo 2, there's Frozen Armor, Shiver Armor, and Chilling Armor on the Sorceress tree. And you can get them on items like Fortitude. It's an armor.
the ice crystals forming around the character.
Ice crystals. So when you're standing still, huh?
They'll drop off if you walk. When monsters hit you, they take cold damage and build up to a freeze, so it's a great defense. Just be careful. You have to be standing still for a little while to get the full effect, so trying to start a step isn't the best strategy. Now, Arctic Armor is an ongoing buff, but did you notice it didn't reserve any mana? How does that work? Well, we were pretty sick of the fact that in POE1 basically every character was playing with no mana pool, so we decided to change the way that reservation works.
Yeah.
There's a new resource in POE2 called Spirit.
I'm, see, like, now I'm wondering too, like, how, like, that shield, you know, are there I wonder if there's like gems that allow it to generate when you're running, right? Like, that change it. And then if that's the case, like, maybe that'd be worth picking up on the monk or something, right? And can it freeze enemies and then he can just like shatter them with his ability then, right? Am I doing this correctly? I feel like I'm already theory crafting builds and I haven't played the game. I've never played Path of Exile ever.
Spirit is a dedicated resource you can use for ongoing effects like Arctic Armor, Heralds, Auras, or even Minions. Everyone starts with 100 Spirit, which is enough for most ongoing effects. But if you
That's
want
cool.
more than one effect, you're going to need some more Spirit. Spirit is available on mods from items and on the passive tree. But if you're willing to give up your offhand slot, the easiest way to get it is by holding a Scepter.
So can everyone just dual wield then?
Now, if you want to increase the cold damage you're dealing, you can use a Frost Bomb. It places a bomb on the ground that reduces the enemy's cold resistance while it's ticking down. It's a great opportunity to use some cold skills before it explodes.
So minus enemy cold
And
res
speaking of
bomb.
cold skills, a great skill to use on monsters with the slower cold resistance is Comet. This is a new skill in POE2, and
Yeah,
it's
that
pretty
looks
damn
cool.
hard. It costs a lot of mana and has a really long cast time, but it's worth the wait. It does a devastating amount of damage. To help get you out of danger, your character moves
said it
back
was a-
slightly as it casts. It's
He
pretty
said it was
hard
a really long cast time, but it didn't seem that long to me.
to hit a fast-moving opponent, but it's great on tougher enemies that stand still, or even a larger pack if you're further away and can predict where they're going to move. Now, if you run out of mana casting too many of those, I guess in an emergency you could cast your free-to-cast Fireball. Where
Free
did
to
that come from,
cast.
you ask? Well, this is a great opportunity to explain the way we've changed casting.
Yeah, right.
weapons
I remember
in
this now. It's like right on the item.
POE2. Now, in POE1, caster weapons had a default melee attack that nobody used, and because they had that, they also had a bunch of attack mods that would spawn in them that were useless to a caster.
Yeah, dude, Diablo 2 is full of this kind of stuff too. Full of this kind of stuff. Mods that are useless, that are always spawning on certain things. They would have to really rework how some of those things work for them to be useful, or change what can spawn in them. So I like that they are like, why don't we have some useful mods on these staves and stuff?
In POE2, we wanted to clean that up. So
Grants level 10 fireball skill. Hallelujah. So like in Diablo 2, you can get like charges of spells, and what's nice about them, I guess, is they don't cost mana, but what sucks about them is that they're always such a low level and the required level to use them on an off class is so high that like by the time you ever find one, it's useless. Absolutely useless. No one will ever use it. So Path of Exile 2 here is basically just like granting my wish. Like I've always wanted the devs to kind of rework the charge system and stuff like that for Diablo 2 so that you could, make some more cool builds and stuff and actually get some use out of these items. And they're everywhere. It's like all the vendors are full of these kinds of items and stuff. And it's like, it's so pervasive through the game that you're just kind of like, was this ever supposed to be like a useful mechanic? And then they just like left it in and forgot about it, So I like that this game is like grants level 10 fireball skill. Boom. There you go. You found an item that gave you a skill. Isn't that cool?
now each staff comes with a built-in free-to-cast spell.
Love
Just
it.
put it on and spam to your heart's content.
Love it.
Now, this particular staff is the base type that you get right on the starting beach, and it's quite likely that you're going to outgrow it.
And it's also
that's
plus
why
one
we
to
have
all
a lot of
lightning
staves
skills.
with more utility-focused powers for casters to use.
And that's a blue
Here we
item.
have a crystal staff. It's got a pretty
And this one says plus 2 to level of all cold spell skill gems. 12% increased critical spell damage bonus. Grants level 1 unleash skill.
cool built-in spell called Unleash. Using it slams your staff on the ground and will allow you to triple cast whatever you cast with your next spell.
Nice. And you can see 3 little like fireballs like rotating around the staff.
Now, of course, you're probably going to want to use that with something powerful.
Oh, sweet.
Comet is a great option.
Reminds me of Quadra Magic materia in Final Fantasy VII, although it's, 3, not 4 in this.
You'll notice that Unleash is one of the few skills in POE2 with a cooldown. In general, we really try to avoid using cooldowns because we really hate the feeling that combat is just waiting to be able to use your next skill.
Makes sense,
But it
though.
does make sense for Unleash.
I just
It's
said
free
that.
to cast, and it's something we want you to be using situationally anyway.
Yeah, situationally.
Now, if you're facing some-
That's also something that I feel like that they're really trying to stress in PoE2. Situational use things, right? That's really great. I always thought, like, Diablo 2 has a little bit of that. And the reason I keep referencing Diablo 2 all the time is because the only other ARPG I ever really, got into. But Diablo 2 has some of that, where it's like, oh, maybe I can get a curse, like a confused curse on like an item, like a rare that rolls some charges of a confused curse, and I could use that once in a while. Or my armor rune word that I made procs something that has an effect, and it kind of allows me to have a little bit more crowd control. Yeah, like those kind of things are cool. This game is like really doing it though. Like tons of abilities to set up scenarios for yourself or deal with certain scenarios. And I really like that. I think it's so smart. It's going to feel so good to use all these combination of skills. Like I said, you're using multiple skills, not just
Something
one
tough,
or two.
you might want to try out Mana Tempest. Mana Tempest creates a circle of power in which your character literally hovers over the ground. While in the circle, your mana drains, but it powers up all of your spells. Lightning projectiles fall.
That's cool. So your mana's draining constantly in that circle, but your spells are stronger. That's kind of interesting. I wonder, like, see, I'm just thinking, I'm like, there's probably ways to like get your mana back, like when you take damage or something, you know? So you could like stay in there and like take damage and just keep spamming your spells, but they'll be stronger. And I like the like just a little detail that when you're in it too, he said you like kind of hover. Is that right? That, like I didn't notice it that much. I'm not here. I'll go back just a little bit because I'm curious.
Try out Mana Tempest. Mana Tempest creates a circle of power.
Yeah, they're hovering. They're flying.
Hovers over the ground. While in the circle, your mana drains, but it powers up all of your spells.
Like that's just a nice little detail about using it. Like when you use, I like that your guy just lifts off the ground a little bit and she's just floating inside it. Like that's the attention to detail that really makes me excited for some of this stuff too.
Lightning projectiles fork, beams chain further, and you'll also do a lot more damage.
This build of the game is 10 months old too. They've been doing so much more on top of this. This video is 10 months old. Like, there's not even the WASD on the sorceress in this video. Did you notice that? Like, she's just running, stopping, casting, stopping, casting. Like, she's not, like, strafing and casting. See, that was cool. She was hovering in the air there in her mana thing, her Mana Tempest thing. And then the chilling armor started to build as well while she was standing still.
So with all of these skills, here's a great combo to try. First, cast Frostbomb to reduce the target's cold resistance. Then use Mana Tempest to increase your damage. Follow it with Unleash, and then triple cast the Comet to do a truly insane amount of damage.
Right, so reduce their cold res, increase your spellcasting damage with the Mana Tempest. Make sure you activate the Unleash skill, and then triple cast the Comet. Yeah, I like that setup. Sweet. Yeah, that's got to be satisfying. And it looks cool that you're like hovering. You're hovering
this
now.
Monster dropped an uncut gem. This is a good opportunity to talk about how skill gems drop in POE2. Instead of dropping specific gems, you can find uncut gems. Just right-click on them and pick whatever skill you want. The gem will come pre-leveled to the level of the area that dropped it, so it's a lot easier to change between...
All right. Spark, Frostbomb, Arc, Ice Nova, Frost Wall, Arctic Armor, Mana Tempest, Cast on Shock, and Barrier Invocation.
Skills in POE2.
And look at the menu. It says Witch, Sorceress, Sorceress, Ranger. Yeah, so like you can just click over there and it's just like the Ranger abilities and you're just like, oh, okay, let me take that one. Crazy.
This time, I think it might be cool to grab one of our meta gems. Meta gems are skills that can have other skills socketed into them, changing how they work. In this case...
Okay, what does this one say? Cast on Shock. Reservation, 100 Spirit, cooldown time, 1 second. Cast time instant. Grants a buff that causes you to gain energy when you shock enemies and trigger socketed spells on reaching maximum energy. Gain 20 energy when you shock an enemy with a hit from a skill, once per skill use. 10 10 maximum energy per 0.1 seconds of base cast time of socketed spells. I gotta be honest, I don't know what I'm reading right now. Trigger all socketed spells and lose all energy on reaching maximum energy. I'm like, you gain energy when you shock enemies. Okay. And then, and you trigger a spell on reaching max. Okay, get it. You get energy, and when your energy fills, you cast the spell. Got it. Jeez.
So we're going
Took
to
me a while,
select
sorry.
Cast on Shock. Now, let's equip this thing in the skill screen and choose a spell to trigger with it. I think Comet might be fun. Because Cast on Shock reserves Spirit, we'll need to first disable our Arctic Armor. We have to decide if we'd rather have the extra defense or the extra offense of the Cast on Shock using our...
Okay, so you can't have the Arctic armor anymore because you don't have enough spirit.
Spirit.
Got it.
In POE2,
You have to
trigger
decide what you're doing. I like that.
gems use a system of filling up cast time on each trigger. Basically, if a skill has a short cast time, then we'll trigger it really often. If it's got a long cast time, like this Comet here, it will take a lot longer to trigger. You can see up the top left that there's a counter that says how far it is until the next
90%.
trigger.
Boom. Okay.
And there you are. Using Cast on Shock, we'll automatically cast Comet whenever we're using our lightning skills.
Okay, I'm sorry. That's so awesome, dude. That is so awesome that you can get a free cast of something by building up another element. That's really sweet. I really like that. I don't know if that's in PoE1 or not, but super cool to me. I do wish like Diablo 2 had stuff like that, you know? There are on-striking like procs in Diablo 2 where you can like have like a spell happen if you hit something or get struck by something, but not with spell casting though. So like this is pretty cool. Yeah.
So we've found the generator. Time to power it up.
Dude, this game is, in my opinion, this is Diablo 3. You know? Like, this is the game that everyone's been trying to make after Diablo 2. This is it right here.
As power is restored to the Mechanarium, all the constructs are coming back to life. We'll need to fight them on the way back to the charged Soul Core. One thing that PoE1 players might have noticed is that this character has both ice and lightning spells. That's pretty inefficient, isn't it? It's a big no-no for most builds because any specialization into cold or lightning isn't going to affect the other element. And generic elemental damage.
Yeah, Diablo 2 is very much like that as well. I'm trying to think. You're more rewarded for going into one element, I would think. Overall, especially with the introduction of the Sunder Charms, which can break enemy immunities in Diablo 2 Resurrected. Hybridizing a sorceress build in Diablo 2 can be done. It absolutely can be done. But it's like you are just a lot weaker. Like a lightning sorceress that uses Nova is so freaking strong with endgame gear. There's no reason to hybridize the build at all, you know? But I like that they're like, that's a big no-no in Path of Exile 1, you know? Like, you should just use one skill and max it out. But in Path of Exile 2, we want you to have lots of, like, skills to use and hybridize the build for different scenarios.
Are not going to be as powerful as focusing on a single element. Well, in PoE2, we have another major new system to introduce to solve these kinds of problems, and it starts with weapon swap. Now, in PoE1, weapon swap isn't really used much for its originally intended use case. We imagined that people were going to be swapping in and out between different weapons.
Interesting. I don't remember him saying that before. He said weapon swap, like its intended use was for people to like try to come up with ways to hybridize things, but nobody did that. Yeah, that's in Diablo 2. It's kind of the same. Like, there isn't too much of people. Like, usually what you have on swap in Diablo 2 is something to buff your character. That's pretty much it. Like, usually your life or cast, like, just something with more skills on it, you know? or resummon something with more skills, or to like have like teleport charges on a staff so you can teleport earlier without getting the end game armor. It's not usually to hybridize your build. Like, very rarely do people do that. But that's such a cool idea. That's something that I try to do on my builds, actually, in Diablo 2.
Deal with whatever situation they were in. People just don't do that at all.
Yeah,
And a large reason
they
for
don't.
that is because it's really awkward to do. In POE2, we wanted to solve that. The staff Octavian is using here has an ice mod on it that makes it great for when he's using his ice spells. We would also like to be able to make sure that the build works just as well for his lightning spells. If Octavian equips his previous staff in his second weapon set, you can see that it appears on the character's back. Now we're going to open up the skills screen.
I forgot about
if
that.
Octavian opens up the skill options for his lightning skills, you can see here that you can choose which weapon sets are usable with each skill. First, we uncheck set 1 from being used by his lightning skills. Then, we go through the cold skills and turn those off with his lightning weapon.
Yeah, the customization there is really nice. I mean, it seems complicated at first, but it's not. You just have first slot, second slot. Like, do you want these on the first slot and there's the second slot? Like, you just choose it. It's really cool. And I remember, too, about the passives that they show. That blew my mind before.
Now, when we use Spark, the character will automatically switch to the lightning staff on his back, and then use the skill.
Yeah, that's
When
really
Octavian
sweet.
uses Ice Nova, his character automatically switches over to his ice staff before you
So good.
figure each
so
skill
good.
for which set to use, or both if you don't mind which. There's a very short time penalty to switching, so it can be good to leave some skills on both sets if it doesn't matter which weapon set you're using. But we still have the problem of passives. Wouldn't it be nice if we could specialize in both cold and lightning passives on the character? Well, in POE2, you can. We're on the passive skill screen here, and you can see that we're close to both a cold and a lightning cluster.
I remember this was literally so I haven't watched this in 10 months, right? And this here, being able to choose the passives for the weapon swap was like the biggest takeaway from this video, I remember. Like, that's the one thing I like didn't forget at all, you know?
At the top right of the screen, you can see where we have some weapon set specific points to allocate. If Octavian holds shift, he can allocate set 1 to the cold passives, and then allocate set 2 to the lightning passives. Now check this out. As we weapon swap, our passive tree changes from one build to the other automatically.
So good.
Whenever we cast the appropriate spell, the character's passives reconfigure on the fly to the correct build for that spell. Now you can't do this with every passive on your
It's
tree.
like, hey man, that's cheating. But it's really cool. I like that, and I'm sure they've balanced the game in such a way that you want to hybridize your build.
Only points granted from skill books will allow this kind of dual specialization. So you can't change from a mace slamming warrior into a fire elementalist with the press of a button, but it certainly increases the number of options you have for builds.
Wait,
There's
what?
a huge number of places where
Wait,
this
what?
certainly increases. Can't change from a mace slamming warrior into a fire elementalist with the press of a button.
You can't change from a mace slamming warrior to a fire elementalist at the press of a button. Why is that then? I don't get it. Does it have to be like nearby in the passive skill tree or something? Or does it have to be the same weapon type, maybe? Is that the limitation? You can only dual passive spec with the same weapon type or something? I don't know, I missed that. Maybe someone can inform me.
But it certainly increases the number of options you have for builds.
Yeah.
There's a huge number of places where the system can shine. You could augment your Dagger Shadow build with traps, or have a great curse setup on your Witch in one spec, and then move to your Chaos Debuff spells with the other. It really opens up your options.
Okay.
I need more time.
Another fun metagem to try out is called Barrier Invocation. This works a little bit like the trigger gem I talked about before. But
All
this
right, what is this? The Barrier Invocation. Casting the skill once grants a buff that causes you to gain energy when you take energy shield damage from a hit, up to a maximum. Casting the skill again will consume the energy to trigger socketed spells. When hit, gain 1 energy for each 50 energy shield lost to damage taken. Maximum energy is 500. Socketed spells consume 10 energy per 0.1 seconds of base cast time when triggered. Once again, I don't know what I'm reading. I'm like, what? Okay, casting the skill once grants a buff that causes you to gain energy when you take energy shield damage. Okay, so you cast the skill, you gain energy when you take energy shield damage.
This one charges up as your energy shield is hit by monsters. I think
It charges up as your energy shield is hit by monsters.
we might like to put an Ice Nova in this one. The more energy shield you lose, the more charge builds up until the point where you're able to cast the skill you socketed instantly.
Okay. Like,
Lose some energy shield, and then at just the right time invoke Ice Nova to cast all the stacked up versions in one cast.
wait, so it...
If you keep losing shield, you'll build up even more charge for even more casts.
So that did that just like fire off several Ice Novas like at once? Is that what happened?
Great defensive option in an emergency.
Sorry, I'm a little lost on that one, but is that how... Did I say that right?
And here we are back at the charged Soul Core. All we have to do now is take it. How hard could that be?
Oh dear. Now we just have to remove it from that construct.
Yeah, and then cool boss, right?
That to you.
Nice introduction. Zicodal. Warden of the Core. And now they're focusing on the monk now.
Death comes.
Yeah, and I don't think there's anything else after this, really. There's not too much, yeah. It's just the end. They just kill this thing. There, triple cast. The sorceress triple cast that comet.
Your fate is sealed. Stay still.
Whoa, we almost died from that.
So that's Path of Exile 2. Your next question is likely to be, when is the beta? Well, we're in our last year of development, finishing acts, adding skills, and balancing everything. The closed beta will start on June 7th, 2024.
Except it won't. They're moving it. They moved it, right? Which is great because you don't want them to release this stuff half baked, right? It's got to be finished. You don't want skills that don't work and math that isn't calculating right and tooltips that are wrong and a class that is just garbage, and you don't want any of that for a game like this. You just can't have it. And plus, like, people that play these kinds of games, they're so critical, man. They're so critical. They will just turn on you. Like, you'll have so many people turn on you. But the feeling I get, though, with these devs is that the fan base trusts them for the most part. It really feels like that. Whereas with Blizzard, there is a big negative feel to Blizzard. Back when I was young, Blizzard North, you know, making Diablo and like the other big games they had, StarCraft and Warcraft and stuff. I mean, dude, Blizzard was just, they were one of the greatest video game companies of that time, you know. They were doing things that they made games back then that people are still playing 25 years later. So, and though it's not the same, you know, it's just not. And I really do think that Path of Exile 2 now, with the experience that these guys have and the philosophy they have, they're really giving someone like me something to look forward to in a game. It just seems like they really love Diablo 2, man. Like, it's some of the things that were in that game that you could see they were there, but it's like they didn't quite execute it. Like I was talking about hybridizing builds and stuff and all that. You can see it was like, it's kind of like in it, like it's there, but it's not that easy to do in Diablo 2. And then you can tell that the people that are making Path of Exile 2 they could see that, they could sense that. So yeah, I really appreciate that. I like what they're doing. I can't wait for the game. You know, I wasn't even like that hyped about it before, but the more recent reveals have kind of made me like honestly, it was the couch co-op thing. The couch co-op thing made me just be like, dude, oh, this is going to be so fun to play, you know, with my brother or whatever, my friend. So it's like the couch co-op kind of reinvigorated my interest in this. And now I'm going back and watching this like old video and I'm like, dude, this looks so good. Yeah, this looks great. So really excited about it. Thanks for checking out the video. Talk to you dudes later. Bye.